Okay, guys, let's try this again. I'm not real keen on this setup, but we'll just kind of make it work. So we're on page 8 of our note packet. We're dealing with this equation, t equals 42 plus 30 plus sine of x. If you go to C and D before that, on the top of page 8, we're just not going to do those. They don't even make any sense according to the problem. So that doesn't give us anything good to go over. So this equation tells us degrees of temperature in months. So that kind of tells us a lot that we need to know about this problem. So if I look at this, I know number one that it's a sine graph. So my graph is going to look like this. So I know the shape of it. Number two, I have 0 months here for January, and I have 12 months here for December. December. And then I also know that I have the middle, which is going to be June. Okay, that's the 6th month. And then the 3rd month will be March. And then we're going to have July. If you guys can kind of see what we're talking about here. Now, I know I have an amplitude of 30, and this is my vertical shift up of 42. So my midline is going to be 42 degrees. So that's my midline. So we'll just draw a nice little dot around there. Not very straight dotted line, but we'll take it. And then I know my starting point is going to be right here at 42 degrees. Now, as I go, there's no shift. There's no shift, and this graph doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but we'll go ahead and use it anyways. There's no shift. Maybe it's in the southern hemisphere. Let's call it that. So if we look at this, we know I've got 5 main points, and then my highest point of the graph is going to be here, which is going to be the vertical shift plus the amplitude. So that's going to be 72. So we've got one part, and then when it comes back down, it's going to be right in the middle again. And then when it goes here, it's going to be the vertical shift minus be 12. And so my graph looks somewhat like this, because we know it's a sine graph with no phase shift, and it looks something just like that. So if we look at this and we ask ourselves, A, what is the highest monthly temperature? It's going to be right here, which is 30 degrees higher than the midline, so that's going to be 72 degrees. If we ask ourselves, B, what month does the highest temperature occur? According to this graph, it's going to be in March. If we look at C, and we look at what's the lowest monthly temperature, it's going to be 12 degrees. And according to this graph, it's going to occur in July. So even though the months are a little bit weird for us, this tells us it's a sine graph. It has a midline of 42, has an amplitude of 30. So to find our maximum and minimum, we're going to go midline plus amplitude. To find our minimum, we're going to go midline minus amplitude. And then since it's a sine graph, we know that our peaks are here and here. So we're able to answer our questions, and that's page 8. we can move on to page 9, just because it's pretty straightforward when we're looking at this. So we're already into page 9 now. Page 9. Page 9, it's about the moon's orbit, and you can kind of, I'll draw a quick sketch of it. So we have the moon's orbit. It starts up here at 100, goes down to 0, it looks like, back up, and it stops right there at, looks like right around 50. So this is 100, this is right about 60, and then the 40 is right about here, and then it kind of does its thing, and then right here is 14 degrees. You guys have a diagram in your packet, and it says use the graph to determine the moon's period of revolution and its amplitude. Well, if we look, we're looking at a midpoint of right about here. And I would say either you're going to use this point from here to here for a period, or you're going to use this point from here to here. You'll probably get about the same answer. So this point here is about 7 days on the graph, and this one here is about 35 days. So that gives us about 28 days for a period. So all I did was look where it's going to repeat itself. That looks like it's going to repeat itself right about there. That's one way to look at it. The other one, like I said, is to go from here, which is 0 days, up to here, which is 28 days. Well, that's the same length, 28 days. So you can look at it in either spot, just depends on how you're seeing the repeating pattern. So there's this repeating pattern. I'll do it in kind of a different color if it works, which is 28 days long. Or you can start here, and there's that repeating pattern. So there's a couple of different types, a couple of different ways you can look at the repeating pattern. So either way, the moon's period is 28 days. It takes 28 days to go around. And how high? Well, we're just going to take our height here, which is right around 50. I would say that the amplitude is right around 50%, because this is 100, this is 50. 100 minus 50 is equal to right around 50% of it shaded. Same thing here. This is 0% shaded. Halfway up is about 50. So it's about 50%. So our amplitude is about 50%, just looking at the graph. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that one, and then I'll start another one here.